The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome from the General Assembly and the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Cox Communications. We're pleased to have two members of the General Assembly with us this morning. Senator Frank Wagner, representing the 7th Senatorial District. Welcome, sir.
Woody, it's great to be here.
Delegate Barry Knight, good to see you again. I think you represent the 81st?
I do.
81st District?
Thanks for having me,
You're both
Woody.
from the Virginia Beach area.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll start with you, Senator. What is it, about 37, 38 days left in this 45-day 2013 short session.
Right.
But things have really gotten off to a bang, haven't they?
They have. It's going to be an incredibly busy next month trying to sort through this. For something that's a short session, there's a lot of big issues in front of us this year, more so than I think I've seen in other short sessions. And a lot of things, Medicaid being one, of course, transportation we've talked about, the ports is another issue, all key to Hampton Roads, and big decisions have to be made in a relatively short period of time here.
And Delegate Knight, I know you're hearing a lot of concerns from your constituents about those issues and others.
Well, we are, and like the Senator said, this is a short session. He and I are both businessmen. We're citizen legislators, so we're not like Washington here. We're on the go from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night trying to get the business of the citizens of the Commonwealth done.
And of course, you mentioned the ports, and they are a huge economic driver for the Commonwealth. Give us the lay of the land in terms of what's going on here in Richmond about the ports.
Well, we have and have had on the books for, I think, for a decade or so, the Private-Public Partnership Transportation Act, and that was put in 10 years ago, recognizing that the private sector has a lot of capital and may be able to assist the Commonwealth in building some of our roads and highways. And if you look around the Commonwealth, you'll see, you know, Dulles Access Road, hot lanes around D.C., a number of projects that were all transportation related. I don't think any of us had voted for that 10 years ago. In our wildest imagination, imagine somebody would make a bid on the port. However, when you read the literal sections of the code, there's nothing preventing that kind of action from going on. We've received two offers to privatize the port, if you will, if you turn the port operations over to private firms, as opposed to the relationship we have right now, which is the Virginia Port Authority basically oversees and directs Virginia International Terminals, a nonprofit, non-stock corporation, for the operation of the port. That has worked very well for the last 30 years, and now we have these proposals in front of us, and you're asked to evaluate one against the other. Now, that's really not our decision. It's the Port Authority's decision to decide whether to change operators. But because we are in session, we can do certain things legislatively to assist in that decision, right. Let me put it that way, one way or the other. My concerns are, and I spent a lot of time, I know Barry has also, leading up to this session, talking with businesses that have a concern with the port, one way or the other. They derive some of their income, transportation, freight forwarders, stevedoring companies, tug companies. I mean, it goes on and on and on. A tremendous amount of activity in our economy here in Hampton Roads, and indeed all over Virginia, is tied to our port. These decisions, I believe, need to be made very carefully, very slowly, and initially it seemed like a rush to judgment, and right now the schedule seems kind of quick, and particularly now that you've changed the executive, the chairman of the board of the Virginia Port Authority is brand new, just came on board a month or two ago. We're hopeful here that we've come up with a number of reforms. I'm carrying a bill, and Delegate Jones in the House is carrying a similar bill that basically restructures that relationship. We haven't looked at that relationship between BPA and VIT in 30 years. So we restructure it. There's no rush to judgment here. They're talking a 48-year lease. Let's do some reforms, see if those work and achieve some of the results that were brought out in the course of different studies that have been going on over the last 6 months. Let's give that a chance to see if it works and restore that. But that's kind of the position we're in right now. I mean, obviously the entire nation's recovering from a very deep recession. That showed kind of negative numbers on our port, which you'd expect to see. It showed negative numbers on a lot of companies' balance sheets, but it appears container traffic is picking up. The results, particularly in the last just 5 or 6 months, have been been very positive in the port. So we think it's time to slow this train down, and let's put some reforms in, see if those achieve the results we're looking for, and then if it doesn't, then perhaps we can still take proposals next year or the year after. And remember, this is a 50-year lease we're looking at.
Sure. Slowing the process down helps you and your constituents try to determine what kinds of reforms are necessary, I take it.
Well, that's very true, because the structure of the port over there is the state of Virginia owns the port, but VIT is the operating arm.
And the VIT is?
Virginia International Terminals.
Okay.
And they're the operating arm. We had to get them in there 30-some-odd years ago to help when we got the port under one ownership of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've got in there, Frank and I are both on the Port Study Committee. Frank's been on it for a few more years before I have, when we had the unsolicited proposal to actually sell the port, which didn't go through, and that was the first inkling we had of a process, maybe. But Frank and I are both businessmen. We've both been in business for 30, 40 years, and sometimes you need someone to come in there and reevaluate your business. And this private solicitation that we've had from a private company for our operating arm of our port has made us take another look at the operations of the port. And we've had a JLARC study come, and a JLARC study has said...
JLARC, for our viewers.
Yes, is a Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission. To see and look at the parameters, to look at the numbers and see how it's operating. They've come back to us. They've said, the port has been in a recession. It wasn't doing maybe quite up to its potential, but it looks like it's coming along now. The port has a lot of worldwide contacts that we don't want to throw away. That's a little bit of an intangible we can't put a price tag on. But the way that the port is going now, it looks like that we've seen that possibly some upper management consolidation can be done, maybe some restructuring of some salaries can be done, but it looks like our port is really positioned well with the Panama Canal expansion to be in a good place. So we do want to slow this train down a little bit and take a look. And I think the private solicitation we had was a good thing. But now that we've sent a shot over the bow of the port, I think maybe now we maybe be backing off a little bit and seeing if what we've got maybe isn't a good system.
Great. Senator Wagner, I believe you were in the Panama Canal at some point in time, and you can speak to us about the expansion that's going on there.
Yeah, last September I had the opportunity to go down to Panama and actually tour both the existing canal as well as the new canal. Very, very exciting project. Looks like it'll be online in about 2 years. It is where the existing locks are 100 feet on width or breadth of a ship, and a ship as wide as 100 feet can accommodate that. The new locks that they're putting in now will be 150 feet, which you say initially that's only half as big as the existing, but when you start talking about TEUs, which is the measurement we use for containers, you're talking about ships that today can accommodate in the existing canal maybe 4,000 and 5,000 TEUs on a single ship. You're talking about going to 14,000 TEUs.
So that would allow those huge container ships now to get through the canal.
Precisely.
Okay.
The larger ones that are coming online right now, and basically it's economy of scale that the shipping lines use. It's the same amount of crew, not a whole lot more fuel to drive the bigger ship through, and obviously they can move 3 times the containers on a single ship. So the cost per container shipment does. So you'll see the industry driving towards this. And in fact, we're already accommodating in the port of Hampton Roads via European traffic the larger container ships that we're talking about that will have access to the Panama Canal. It also opens up in terms of coal exports a tremendous new opportunity in coal exports. Much larger coal ships can then pass through the canal and service in the exciting growth economies over in Asia right now.
Well, you know, I've often go through Front Royal, and I notice there's a sign there that says the inland port. What is that?
Well, we have the Port of Virginia. The Port of Virginia isn't just at Hampton Roads. We have these inland ports where we can stack these containers and go from Interstate 81 and go all over the United States. So when we say the Port of Virginia, it's located in Hampton Roads, but it truly is the Port of Virginia because it may originate at Hampton Roads, but we've got where we can double stack train cars now to double our capacity. So we've got some of the best rail facilities around to double stack these containers to get them out of the port. So we just need to get these containers to we have a large area that we can service. We have competition. We have a little bit of competition in Baltimore. Our largest competition is in New York. We have some down in Savannah. And we have these circles that, you know, it's just economies of scale. You can't go but so far, but we have to get these containers to these inland ports there. So the Port of Hampton Roads is very, very well positioned. We can actually accommodate these Panamax super ships now, where I don't believe any other ports can, because New York has a bridge that's in the way. So we're ready right now. We're ready. We're ready. We're open for business.
Well, besides the port that employs a lot of people, obviously the Commonwealth has a lot of military installations, and of course a lot are in your districts. And what's going on in Washington is a little bit concerning, to say the least, because if this sequestration issue is not resolved, it's going to have a significant adverse impact on our military installations and federal employees. What planning is being done to potentially mitigate that impact?
Let me say there's a couple things. First of all, we're very, very modest in our revenue projections. We, per capita, are by far and away the largest receiver of federal dollars of any state in the nation, which makes us especially sensitive to cuts. Obviously, with the amount of defense establishments and the amount of defense expenditures, both personnel as well as contracts, both in Northern Virginia as well as in the Hampton Roads area, of which I happen to be one of those contractors, we're very, very concerned. We're very, very concerned for the implications for Virginia. We have, and the governor has asked for an additional $50 million in something he calls a FACT fund, which is a fund that he has put together to help mitigate or help fund those things that allow us to diversify our economy across Virginia. Take similar skill sets that might be in the defense industry now that might have application in other industries, as well as economic development activities of bringing new business in, which has been a function of Virginia for a while, but it's just an increased emphasis on it. Also, you know, helping if there should be a BRAC, helping those kind of measures to help, obviously, fight if a decision is made to close a Virginia base.
And that's a base realignment.
Base realignment and closure.
Right,
I'm sorry,
right,
you use so many acronyms. You know, hopefully a lot of our military listeners will pick right up on this, and like he's talking English to me, and others may not understand. But at any rate, we're concerned for a number of reasons. So therefore, our revenue projections, I think, are very modest in terms of what most economists are predicting, you know, long term for the rest of the country. We recognize our vulnerability there. We're already starting to see that. I mean, there's already military budget cuts going on despite sequestration right now, and it's particularly large drawdown in the Army and the Marine Corps occurring even as we talk right now. But a lot of decisions, like business people are making all over the country, are being delayed, as they are in the military, due to the absence of any kind of direction from Congress at this point. And so this is kind of a state of limbo, and obviously makes our job a little bit more difficult in trying to predict the future. And our state, along with many, many other states, receive federal dollars and matching grants and research grants. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And all of those are kind of in a state of limbo, where might they be and that type of thing. But the federal government provides subsidies and everything from mass transit to research and development, like I said. And then you have NASA, you have, you know, the Jefferson Labs down in our area, all, you know, DOE and obviously NASA, a separate agency. What's the future for them? And so all of these things are weigh on us as we try to make decisions up there.
And of course, Delegate Knight, there's a ripple effect in terms of businesses. Those who serve the military, so to speak, the small restaurants, those kinds of things. I'm sure you may be hearing from those constituents as well.
Well, we have, and we're very, very lucky in Virginia because we weathered this recession very well in Virginia, and because of our largest economic engine in Virginia Beach particularly, which is our armed forces. And one thing that we did realize was we got very, very nervous back in about 2005 when we thought Oceana may close because it is such a large economic engine for us down there. So we came up with this plan that the state would contribute $7.5 million. And some of that money is coming out of this FACT fund that Senator's talking about, and the city would contribute $7.5 million to try to roll back encroachment around Oceana to show them we were serious. We wanted to be a partner with the Navy and the Armed Forces, and we really appreciate you. And I've been trying to do what I can in the House, and Frank is on Senate Finance, and he's done it in the Senate. So between the two of us, we've been able to keep this state money to keep this encroachment rolled back. And the Navy has sent some accolades our way for saying, maybe you didn't pay attention to us, but we recognize paying attention to us now, and we appreciate your efforts. So hopefully, if there is another BRAC realignment come back, that Virginia Beach and the state as a whole will be insulated because of this.
And I know you are a Naval Academy graduate. Are the Top Gun candidates still trained there at Oceana?
Well, I think Top Gun was always out of Miramar and Naval Air Station out in San Diego, and then a lot of it's done over at Nellis Air Force Base, where a lot of tactical fighter actions go on. But Oceana is still the master jet base. It's still the primary location for all the F/A-18s. It will be for the foreseeable future. Obviously, we're working very hard with the Navy, as I know the Navy is, to try to find another, what we call OLF, or outlying landing field, that may be more compatible. I believe the existing outlying landing fields in your district, right, Barry? Yes. And over in Fentress Field in Chesapeake. A number of locations have been to look, but we think finding a viable, or assisting the Navy in locating a viable OLF will pretty much, you know, continue to consolidate and make those in DOD understand we love the military. We're here to support them. Most of us have been in the military, served many years, and it's all one big family, and we want to do and support, you know, what the Navy's mission is and needs, because quite frankly that is our mission.
Now I think I recall last year there was some concerns expressed from the military about the Commonwealth's needs in terms of transportation, and of course we're facing that once again today. The governor has a proposal. There are a lot of other proposals floating out there. What's your initial reaction to the governor's proposal, especially to do away with the 17.5 cents gas tax and substitute that with an increase in the sales tax?
Well, my initial reaction to that is that my concern is that the gas stations themselves may not, in other words, us, the taxpayers, may not realize that full 17.5 cents. It's been my experience in gasoline retailing as a consumer, like all your listeners are, that perhaps we might see a nickel, maybe 7 to 8 cents of it. I have an alternate proposal I'm putting in, reducing the amount of sales tax, but applying sales tax to gasoline. Reducing the amount of sales tax. So that way, if you say currently we pay 5%, the governor's proposal would be 5.8% sales tax, but there would be no tax on gasoline. I'm proposing 5.5 cents, but that also applies to gasoline, and it'll be taken at the rack. So it's not like we the consumers will say, oh, we spent $40 on gasoline plus 5%. You know, it'll be taken between the distributors and the wholesalers. That's where the tax will be applied. And which is the way that your current gas tax is applied right now too. And so under that methodology, gas at the wholesale level, not what you pay at the pump, is about $3 a gallon. So 3 times 5.5 is 16.5. We're only a penny short of the 17.5, but the 0.5 cent sales tax across the board makes up the difference. It provides a lot of new money to maintain our roads with, there's some other nuances, increasing the registration fee. There's some other things built into the bill that all help apply to it. And then the governor's, and I hope he's right, but there's legislation in Washington. This is the second biggest component of it. And this has to do with internet sales taxes, and most Virginians, or all Virginians, are required, if they don't pay sales taxes on their internet purchase, they're supposed to then record it when they file their income tax returns and do that. I can tell by your look, Woody, that
that doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often, exactly. And the federal government recognizes this, and they have a legislation rolling through that the governor feels very positive. And again, I'm not up in the halls of Washington, thank goodness, but that will roll through. That will produce significant new revenues for the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the governor's proposing parking the vast majority of that money into transportation.
I guess everyone recognizes there's a huge need, because we've been borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, because there's very little new construction. Maintenance takes up most of the transportation needs right now.
Well, that's very true. We have not kept up with inflation. We didn't index the gas tax years ago, and that's what this proposal of the governor's is doing, because by virtue of a percentage, the sales tax will index itself with inflation plus volume. Speaking to the 17.5 cents, North Carolina's 37.5 cents, 20 cents difference. My district runs from the Atlantic Ocean along the North Carolina line all the way to the Great Dismal Swamp, and I go over and eat lunch in North Carolina 2 or 3 days a week. I've got a farm or two down there, and if it's a 20-cent difference between Virginia and North Carolina, there's 2 gas stations side by side, one in Virginia and one in North Carolina. There's about 3 pennies difference in there. So I agree with Frank that I believe that the big oil companies, or maybe the retailers, but I think the big oil companies are going to pocket the difference of this money. So knowing that the governor has put forth a transportation package, I like all components of it except for the reduction of the gas tax. But like any piece of legislation, it's in flux. It can get amended, it can get changed, it can get supplanted by different legislation, such as Frank's legislation.
Right.
But we understand that we're going to run out of maintenance dollars, and we don't have any new construction dollars. So we have about $12 billion worth of needs just in the Hampton Roads area, knowing that a lane mile in Hampton Roads with our bridges and tunnels are many times compounded over the cost of what they would be in other parts of the state. So we actually have greater needs in Hampton Roads on transportation than in most any other area, save Northern Virginia.
Now, people in Northern Virginia don't believe that, but I know you can speak to that issue.
Well, you know, the Northern Virginians paid a special gas tax, excise on their gas tax up there for a number of years because they recognize that. One of the issues, and I didn't bring this up initially, Woody, and I will tell you this, I believe the governor will sign just about anything we can get on his desk, okay? He has made it very clear to me, and made it clear publicly as well as in private meetings that I've had with him, that he will do everything he can and take an active role in pushing transportation funding legislation through. He recognizes it's a one unaddressed issue, and it's been unaddressed, quite frankly, since the time I've been up here, and that was over 20 years ago. We haven't talked to it. We must talk to it. I feel the timing's right now. So a lot of a lot of compromise is going to have to occur between the House and Senate if we're going to be able to craft a piece of legislation that will get 51 votes in the House and 21 votes in the Senate. But we are dug in, and I'm rightly going to be a very busy subcommittee, but on the Finance Committee, I chair the subcommittee on transportation, so that we're going to have a lot of work going on over the next 2 weeks on that.
What's the status of that public-private partnership regarding the Midtown Tunnel? There was a lot of controversy around that last year.
Woody, that contract's been awarded. It's locked. This year we were able to put $100 million up for toll relief, so the tolls,
to raise the cost of the tolls.
Commuters would have been paying tolls right now, except for that $100 million we were able to put in there. And I will remind folks that are listening, as part of the money we can raise regionally, and there'll be another. Excuse me, there'll be another. The General Assembly flu has hit. There'll be another effort. Talking to regional effort here in Hampton Roads, that money can also be used for toll mitigation to maybe not eliminate the tolls, but certainly reduce the impact of that. And, but those numbers, while large, are, I think, more reflective of what it costs to build projects now. And you know, if one can look at adding an additional tube at the Midtown Tunnel and doing some repairs of the downtown tunnel, vis-a-vis what it would take to build the third crossing.
Sure.
And the Patriots Crossing now, you know, 2 existing tunnels, new project, you know, new access, all of those things. And you begin to come to the magnitude of what those tolls might look like on the Monitor, Merrimack, Hampton Roads, and James River Bridge, you know, and it'll be much larger than the tolls that are going to be placed on the downtown.
So this is something that's a positive development.
Well, it is a positive development. This PP3 that we call it was, we have some reservations, and there's some legislation in this year to reevaluate some of these, because when we found out that the Midtown Tunnel, that we weren't going to have any input as legislators, and the administration put it in, and they told us that these tolls would be $1.50 coming and going. We didn't realize that they were going to be $1.50 4 years before the completion. People were going to pay for something that was prospective that they weren't going to get for 4 years. And we were left out of the loop, and we think that we have a lot of expertise up here, being citizen legislators, being business people, that we need to be brought into the fold on this. And you know, we have separate branches of government so we can have some oversight on it. And we're the one of the best states in the union to do business and for regulations, and we need to keep it that way. But we have a lot of collective expertise that we need to use up here.
Great. The Affordable Care Act was upheld by the Supreme Court on grounds that surprised some people. Be that as it may, the state is faced with the issue of Medicaid expansion. What's happening in that regard?
And that is an issue. The one thing the Supreme Court did rule was within the Medicaid expansion of the Affordable Health Care Act, basically said if a state didn't expand their Medicaid rolls, they would be penalized. And the Supreme Court ruled, no, you cannot penalize them on your matching money you currently do for doing that. So basically left the option up to the state. Excuse me, I had to shake this cold. What that meant is that we would basically go from about 400,000 to over 700,000 Medicaid recipients if we accepted the expansion of the poverty level established in the Affordable Health Care Act.
And the costs, I believe, have gone up significantly over the last 5 to 6 years in terms of Medicaid.
Right.
For the state.
Yes, for the state. It's one of those things we cannot manage. We try to do the best we can to forecast in the budget, but it's an eligibility criteria. You just don't know how many folks are going to be eligible, and you have no idea what procedures are going to be. Some very expensive health care procedures. There's some preventative things that obviously we would prefer folks follow. But having said all of that, the question becomes the federal government will pick up for 3 years the entire cost of the expansion. And it's billions of dollars for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And then at that point, 3 years out, then it shifts and it's a 90% feds, 10%, that kind of thing. The governor has shown a willingness to do this if the folks that administer Medicaid will give us opportunities to let us run our program. In other words, waivers from their cookie-cutter approach to how you will run your Medicaid program to what we think we can do a better, faster, more efficient job in terms of managed care, in terms of how we provide and deliver services for those eligible for Medicaid. We have gone in and asked for those waivers, but at this point the governor's not willing to accept the expansion until we negotiate waivers. I've got a piece of legislation that's going in that says, okay, let's take the expansion for 3 years, okay, because it's not going to cost Virginians anything, and that money that would have been spent in Virginia will be spent in other states, right? And those billions of dollars equate to on the back end jobs in the healthcare profession, and at a time when we just talked about defense reductions and the need to diversify our economy, we have a fairly vibrant healthcare industry with EVMS and a number of research facilities going around in the Commonwealth, certainly University of Virginia, MCV here in Richmond. All of those not only are healthcare providers and hospitals, but they're also cutting-edge research and development situations. I think I was talking with Harry Lester, the president of EVMS, just earlier this week, and very exciting things going on down at EVMS. Do we take that? Now, at 3 years, it has a reenactment clause on it, which means in 3 years it goes away unless the General Assembly reinstates it. The rationale behind the 3 years is that's when the state would have to pick up our component of it. And in the meantime, it won't go into effect unless they grant us the waivers.
I'm going to have to cut you off. They're telling me we're running out of time. But it's so good to have you, Senator Frank Wagner and Delegate Barry Knight. Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.